Sophie, you're on mute.
Great start. Apparently I was on mute. Anyway, welcome to the final session of our Meet Your Future Workplace Opportunity Week. This week we've had an amazing week of presenters from a range of different sectors across Greater Manchester. We've had over 20,000 young people take part to sign into this week, which has just been phenomenal. It's far more than we expected when we first put this idea together. So we're absolutely delighted at how many of you have been able to take the time to sign in and to take part in this week. So today we have our final session, as I mentioned, which is a growth sector panel session. We've got 6 presenters for you today, and each of them are going to be telling you a little bit about who they are, their role, and then we're going to be moving on to a Q&A at the end. If you would like to ask any questions of our panelists, please feel free to put them into the Q&A box, and we'll come back through and answer those questions when we reach that section of today's panel. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to our first speaker, which is Sue Fairbairns from the Department for Education. So 1 second as I just line you up, Sue, and then I'm going to send you live.
Brilliant. So hello everyone. Sorry about the headset. My microphone isn't working, so I look a bit like I'm in a call centre today. But I'm Sue. I'm from the civil service, and I hope that some of you were able to join our Meet the DfE call yesterday. And if not, I know it will be available online. So try and take a look at that if you're interested about anything that I'm talking to you about today. So we didn't host a specific growth session, so I'm hoping to give you a quick breakdown of how important all of these sectors are to my employer, and that's the civil service. So if we go on to the next slide, what I just quickly wanted to do is just sort of check that you know what the civil service is, so we can then sort of see how these sectors are vital to the organisation. So the civil service is made up of around 500,000 employees, and we're called civil servants. So civil servants are the people that help the government of the day and their cabinet office develop and carry out policies as effectively as possible. So when the government says they're going to do something, and when you see them on the telly talking about what they want to do, whether it's about Brexit or coronavirus, civil servants are the people that make that happen. And now a policy, just to make sure you understand what that is, so that's the approach the government takes to an issue. So for example, the government have a policy at the minute that some families will get up to 30 hours of free childcare a week, so that parents can go back to work. So something like this can't happen overnight. There are civil servants like me. We might help write the policy or advise people on how to apply, and of course process the paperwork. So civil servants, also very importantly, we're politically impartial. So we're not associated with the government in a sense where if the Conservatives are in or if Labour are in, we're not part of that party. So we're politically impartial is the term. Now, some people do commonly confuse us with, teachers, nurses, doctors, or police officers. So don't think of us as the sort of frontline workers, think of us as those that are sort of behind the scenes helping shape government policy. Now, that said, there are some civil servants that provide frontline services or frontline roles, and if you're interested about that, we can talk about that, or you can listen to another one of the sessions, so the session we did yesterday, which is being recorded. If we go on to the next slide, so the civil service, everyone that works for one of these government departments is a civil servant. Now, there's almost 500,000 of us, which is why it's broken down into these departments. So on the screen, you can see Department for Education, which is where I work. We also created a new department for leaving Brexit. So again, as new policies need to come in, we might need to create a new department for that. Now, if you are interested, you can work directly in policy areas. So for example, I work on the school rebuilding programme, and someone basically has to think, right, how are we going to build schools? That's the policy around it. Now, there's the people like myself who actually take on an operational role and we build it. And And then also there's people behind the scenes doing these corporate roles, so people in IT, digital, finance, things like that, and they're providing the professional services to support the people in policy, and also those operational roles like myself, as I'm a surveyor, so I'm out there you know, helping to build things. Now, if we go on to the next slide, which is why you're all here today, really, so growth sectors. And across all of those government departments that I've just shown you on the screen, there are jobs available within these growth sectors. Now, in particular, I want to emphasise how important the Northwest is for these growth sectors. So traditionally, people might think civil servants, we're all by Westminster down in London, where all the politicians are, and that is not the case. So we're spread across the UK, but in particular, we've got a really strong presence in the Northwest. So if we think about manufacturing, now, of course, there's the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. So you might want to have a look at that government department and see some of the roles available there. But DFE, now these pictures on the screen are photos I took at work. So when we're building schools, we're moving away from this term building and this term manufacturing. So we're in factories manufacturing schools so that we can design them to be a very similar standard, so that children and young people going to school in a variety of areas can get the same standard of school. We sort of manufacture it in a factory and then we take it to site. So the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, which again is another government department, they have similar practices where they look at manufacturing things like hospitals and things like that. So if we look again, so health and social care. Now there's a department for health and social care, where you can work again in policy or operational roles, and even again, you know, in these corporate services, you know, like HR and IT. And of course, DFE, we've got a lot of policy that's relating to social care, social mobility, disadvantage, things like that to get involved with. Now, retail and wholesale distribution, so there's the Department for International Trade, for example. There's HMRC that will sort out VAT and things like that. And also DFE, so sometimes what I have to do is, I'm involved a little bit with wholesale distribution. So what we try to do is we try to buy stuff in bulk. For example, hand sanitizer. When you went back to school, people at the DFE were trying to procure, that means sort of buy, lots of hand sanitizer so that we could get it out to schools that needed it. So then if we look at business, finance and professional services, I've touched on this briefly, but every single government department needs professional services. We need IT support, we need human relations in case, you know, I have a problem at work, I need to go to someone, and we need people to manage the comms. And then I'm just conscious of time, I'm almost up, so digital. We've got a department for digital media, culture and sport. That's a really interesting government department, and there's lots of great videos online that you can watch to learn a little bit more about the roles available there. And I just want to, you know, reaffirm that there's something for everyone. So whether you're interested in the growth sectors or maybe something else, really have a little look online at the sort of roles available. Try and rewatch Meet the DFE, the Department for Education, which was a session we ran yesterday, if you want to find out a little bit more about our government department. So not only is there something for everyone, but we want everyone. So we need a workforce that's really reflective of the community that we serve. That way the policy, you know, these issues in society can be designed and implemented sort of by the people for the people. So I'm conscious of time and my time is up. I hope if you've got any questions, please just let me know. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Sue. So next up, in a slight change to our running order, one second, I think we have Dr. Ponciano is going to be joining us for our Q&A shortly. So what I'm going to do now is ask Amy and Rachel from Marks and Spencer's to join our session. It won't be a second as I get this up. Okay, one second, everybody. So I'd just like to introduce you to Amy, who's going to be speaking first. And as I mentioned, Amy's from Marks and Spencer.
Hi everyone, as Sophie said, I'm Amy and I'm from Marks and Spencer. Just bear with me 1 second. Sorry about that, we're just having some technical issues in the office here. Just bear with me 1 second.
Just a quick one, Amy, Rachel, you sat next to each other. Give me that.
Right, sorry about that, I'm back now. So as Sophie said, I'm Amy, I'm from Marks and Spencer's and I work as a policy advisor. Our office is based in Salford Quays, so no doubt quite local to some of you. So I think we've got a little presentation that Sophie's going to bring up now. So I'm here today to talk to you about the business, professional and financial services sector, but we'll have more of a focus on the HR element of that as well. If we can just have the next slide. So the sector itself, the business, financial and professional services, covers a wide range of job roles, all of which help to support a business to run and grow. So some of those job roles may include elements like accountancy, paralegal, legal services, marketing, finance, and as I said earlier, human resources. So HR and recruitment only actually account for 1% of the UK workforce. However, they are really pivotal in any organisation, with roles available in the public, private and voluntary sectors. And obviously Sue did touch on some of those elements in her presentation just a moment ago as well. So the size of an organisation will determine the structure. So there are some companies that are specifically designed to provide a service within this sector. So there's companies such as Deloitte or banking services such as HSBC. Whereas others, like Marks and Spencer's, we have those functions built into our overall structure. So I'm going to hand it over now to my manager, Rachel, who's going to talk to you in a little bit more detail on the next slide.
Quick changeover, guys. Hi, my name's Rachel Lowe. I am a people policy manager for the line manager advisory service here at Salford Quays. So nice to speak to you. So if we could just move on to the next slide. So what is HR? So obviously, I'm sure you all know HR stands for human resources, and this is a function within an organisation of all things that are worker related, and it's often referred to as the people profession. Now we provide in HR a support through the full employee life cycle from hire to retire. So that's things like, and you can see on the right hand side of the slide, things like recruitment. So we would support our managers in recruiting the right individuals for our organisation. We would also support in interviewing them and selecting them. When they're on board, we would support also, and it really depends on the size of the organisation, as Amy mentioned, onto how, whether you have a separate department. If you have a large organisation like Marks and Spencer's, we would have a separate department that just looks after recruitment, and they would also support with interviewing and selection. We then have a team who would just also look at policy and procedures and development of those procedures. Next in the life cycle is payroll. So we would have, most organisations have a separate payroll function, but they would fit under HR. We would also have a learning and development function. So we would train, how we train and develop our employees throughout the life cycle. And also, I mean, this sounds quite shocking, discipline, but we would have really around our discipline policy. It's how we would expect you to behave in our organisation, a code of conduct, and you know, if you don't comply, if you're constantly late, or in our stores, if you know, theft, for example, there would be a policy, and we would obviously take the individual through that policy and potentially dismiss them if it was gross misconduct. So there's a lot of policies and procedures that HR would support and help develop through the organisation. And then we would have a team of leavers, so who would support and obviously leaver pay, notice, and also exit interviews. So that's sort of the life cycle of an employee, and HR would support in those. Now, you may have a very small organisation, and clearly it wouldn't warrant you to have separate areas in that organisation. So you would normally have what we would call an HR manager, and they would be a generalist. So they would do a little bit of everything really in those areas. So they would recruit, they would develop policies. Normally you would have a separate payroll function, but they would help train. They might write training materials, and they would support managers in things like misconduct, or if someone's got an issue with their line manager or with something that's happening in the organisation, they're able to raise a grievance. So those policies are sort of what we would be supporting our line managers with throughout the life cycle of the employee. We would also, it may be that there's a separate employee relations department within a large organisation, and we do here, but within M&S we have what's called a colleague advisory service and a line manager advisory service, and they fall under colleague services. So my team, for example, would support line managers on things like anything people related. So as I just mentioned, it could be disciplinary, it could be grievance, also performance management as well. So there's lots of different things that we do here in M&S. If you could move us on to the next slide, please, that would be great. So what does the future look like for HR? Well, as you can imagine, at the moment we are being very reactive, and that's due to the fact that we're in the middle of our COVID pandemic here, and coronavirus, I think, has changed the world of work for everybody, not just HR, in every sector and every function in businesses. So we've had to be very reactive. And an example of that is furlough. I don't think anybody had really heard of furlough before March 2020, and everybody has had to really be very reactive, and the government obviously put guidelines out, legislation, and we as a team need to sort of make sure that we're developing that legislation into sort of the practical terms. So it could be things like writing to people, communicating to people with, if there's a need to put somebody on furlough, which means that they stay at home, but we're still paying them, and the government contribute to that pay as well, and that's really to try and save jobs and help the economy. But things like, we've had to digest that kind of legislation, and what is the impact to our business, communicate that out to our employees, and write sort of Q&As and letters and things like that. So it's very, very fast paced. Another thing on the horizon, as you've probably all heard of, Brexit, and that's really for us, I suppose, a concern around talent and skills shortages, and we're looking at different ways of how we can attract and recruit different individuals. You've all heard of Black Lives Matter, the movement, and this has really encouraged businesses to review, and look at their diversity, inclusion agendas and policies as well. So that's been really interesting over the last few months for us as a business. And you can find out a lot about that on M&S's website. Wellbeing is a massive focus for us here in M&S. We're really focused on our sort of good mental health for our employees, and we're looking at different agendas, looking at different strategies and policies so we can support our individuals through wellbeing. And technology, a massive thing that we're doing in M&S at the moment, is looking at what we're calling My HR, which is really sort of the digital future of M&S. We've got lots of different systems that don't talk to each other, and we're trying to bring them all together to really create this whole sort of self-serve initiative, using social media, apps, and anything we can sort of for the digital future. And then remote working, that's been a massive, as you can see, we're actually in the office today. I've not been in the office for weeks, but you can see a lot of us are actually sat at home. So we've had to really adapt our ways of working. You know, I mean, Teams has been absolutely amazing for us. Everything now, every meeting is happening over Teams. We can see people at home, and you know, it's we just have to adapt. You know, we get used to hearing, you know, the door go and dogs barking and that just is becoming a bit of a ways of working. It can be quite amusing sometimes. The rise in working age, so obviously the pension age has increased, so again people are working for longer, so it's making sure our policies are adapted to that, and we're attracting the right sort of talent as well, and developing our younger staff for the future. We will support in anything like that, anything that sort of the world throws at us. HR always seems to be in the midst of it all. So it's a really interesting area, I think, of the business. There's never a dull moment. There's never a day the same. So if you're interested in, you know, working at sort of, you know, fast-paced and things thrown at you from all angles, it's a very interesting area to work for. Okay. I think that's us, isn't it? Yep. We got another slide. I think you're on mute, Sophie.
Thank you so much, Rachel, and thank you to Amy as well for that interesting insight into HR, and also HR at Marks and Spencer as well. It's really interesting to see the amount and the range of different topics that HR covers. I think you often just think about it being kind of one role or one sector, but the breadth of work in that is amazing. We've got a couple of questions coming through, and so all I would like to say to the audience is just keep those coming through, send us questions, and we'll get to start answering those shortly. So what we've got now is we've got Josh Gray coming up from, sorry Josh, I need to get your name right before I introduce you, don't I? So we've got Josh from North Coders, and Josh is going to talk to us about life in digital and life at North Coders.
Thank you, Sophie. Hi everyone, so my name is Josh Gray. I head up the partnerships team here at North Coders. So my role mainly revolves around speaking to companies and talking to them about hiring junior developers, people new to the digital industry, and training up, skilling both new staff and people who are already working at these businesses. Prior to joining North Coders just over 3 years ago, I actually didn't have any prior experience in the digital sector, and knew people who did work in digital who pointed me towards coding bootcamps, which is what North Coders is. And it's not something I'd ever heard of before or even knew as a route into the industry. And the more I read about it, the more I realised it's something I was interested in doing. So North Coders is a training provider that specialises in software development and coding. Our two most popular training programmes are our Level 4 Software Developer Apprenticeship for companies to enrol their staff in a curriculum bespoke to their organisation. So like tech stack, tools that they use. The other is our Coding Bootcamp. So it's designed for people with little or no prior experience, and it gives them everything that they need to become successful developers. Before I start talking about the digital sector, I'd first like to highlight how integrated digital is into businesses across all sectors. So all speakers today who have kindly volunteered their time will either hire or work with very talented digital professionals. One of the most exciting things about the digital sector is the wide range of roles and industries available to work in. So similar to what Amy and Rachel explained very well in their presentation about the importance and integration of HR, any business that makes use of technology, so the internet and any of the supporting infrastructure that goes behind it, will have a need for digital services. So at North Coders, we obviously specialise in software development, which is just one small area of the digital sector. But we've graduates who've gone on to work at, I think it's about 200 companies now, including household names such as AO, BBC, Beauty Bay, so both the Department for Education and Department of Work and Pensions, TalkTalk, Jaguar Land Rover and Vodafone. The digital sector has seen exponential growth in the last few years and now accounts for 9% of the total number of people employed in the UK. So Manchester is actually the fastest growing European tech city. There are a lot of fantastic opportunities in this region, and one of the reasons I enjoy speaking at events such as this is I want to make sure that the local communities, such as the schools that have joined us today, benefit from these opportunities. So when talking about what jobs are in demand, I think it very much makes sense to me to talk about what I know, which is software development. So it's an industry that continues to grow at a faster rate than the number of people coming into the industry. This means that there's a skill shortage and businesses have to be open-minded about the pathways people take into the industry. I'll talk about this in a little bit more detail in a moment, but most organisations, if not all, are open to both self-taught employees and on-the-job training, such as apprenticeships. Another key benefit of being in a rapidly growing industry, working to address the skill shortage, people know that there is this problem here, and organisations and HR departments are working hard to bring people in to fill these positions. Is obviously competitive salaries, including at entry level, excellent job security, and obviously the large number of vacancies, roles available. So an important requirement of being a software developer is, and I'm sure this applies across all digital roles such as marketing, brand, social, but is to keep your skills up to date with modern technologies and practices. So using software development as an example, program languages and approaches go out of date, and it's very much up to you to make sure that you are learning and practicing skills that are in demand. Many employers will offer on-the-job training using businesses such as North Coders, and this is there not only to help attract candidates to a role. One of the most common questions certainly our graduates will ask companies, and I encourage anyone looking to get into industry to ask this question when interviewing somewhere, but it's to ask about what sort of on-the-job training you get. But it also helps keep existing employees engaged and keeps ambitious people who understand your business and the culture in your organisation. One of the great things about software development is that anyone can learn to code. I mean, if I can do it, I'm sure anyone can, but there's a wealth of online resources out there. Many of these are free of charge, there to help anyone get started. I'll talk about a couple of examples in a moment, but I'm sure there's plenty of people listening in who may be already aware of some of these sort of things and use online resources such as Khan Academy for other subjects. But yeah, there's so many places to get started. There's YouTube channels, there's online portals where you can get work through resources and get support. One of the things that I think is really powerful about software development, and again, I think this applies to roles across the digital sector, but is that it's one of the easiest industries to showcase your abilities to potential employers. So what you can do is create an online portfolio of your work and then show people what you are capable of. So using software development as an example, if you're looking for, let's say, a JavaScript developer role, you can create pieces of work or applications and projects made with JavaScript and show people those examples of your work. You can talk about them when you go to interviews, and yeah, the same will apply across the digital sector. So yeah, it's really easy to prove what you can show to people, and people evaluate whether or not you'd be a good fit for that organisation without necessarily formal qualifications. I guess some of my top tips for entering the world of work, and I hope this applies across the work world, not just digital. But there are many organisations that offer people help in getting started in that industry, and coding is no exception. So as well as the tasty programs and the outreach that North Coders do, we've done stuff with schools. We regularly run events where we, once upon a time would have brought people onto our campus, but now run online classes where we can help people get started. But a lot of other businesses will also run free meetups and events when they do this sort of stuff. I know QA, which is another training provider, is running a session on Friday. I think it's a full day thing where they're introducing people to coding, and if it's something that does interest you, I definitely recommend looking at that. But a lot of organisations will also run mentoring programs to talk about what it's like to work in their industry, how they got into that role, the sort of advice that they would give based on their background, and try and reach out to a more diverse community. As previously mentioned, there's a wealth of free online resources to help you get started learning to code. Websites such as Free Code Camp and Code Academy are a great place to not just have a go at learn to code and get started, but I think really importantly as well, see if it's something that you enjoy. One of the things that we always advise to anyone looking to do our course is to work through these materials and see. It not just helps us see whether or not you'd be a good fit for the course and working as a software developer, but helps you make an informed choice about whether or not it would be an industry and a role that you'd enjoy working in. And working through the problem solving and creativity that it offers. So yeah, I hope that answers some questions and sparks many from the people in the audience here. As I mentioned, I didn't know anything about digital until I started looking into it based on the advice of other people. And just to, I think really hammer home what one of the points I'm really passionate about. As I mentioned, Manchester's, rapidly growing area, not just in digital, but just a really broad range of industries that you can work in as part of it as well. Thank you.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Josh. That was really, really interesting. And I know the attendees in the audience have clearly found you very interesting, because we've got a load of questions that have come through, which we'll keep a note of, and we'll make sure that we get those answered shortly. So next, I'm going to introduce you to Karen Thompson, and Karen is from Suez. So Karen, I'm just going to go and send you live now.
Hi, good afternoon. Oh, good morning, everybody, or good afternoon. I'm Karen Thompson, and I work for Suez. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. So, who are Suez? So, we're part of the global Suez Group, and we are known as Suez Recycling and Recovery UK, and we employ over 5,000 people in the UK, with 600 of those based in Greater Manchester. Over the course of the year, we handle 10 million tonnes of waste. So what Suez does is we actually run the household waste recycling sites, or the TIPs, as you may commonly know them better as. And we also have material recycling facilities as well, and energy for waste facilities. So over the course of a year, we handle 10 million tonnes of waste. And we were established in the UK in 1988, and we help to reduce the environmental impact of our customers' waste by recycling and extracting the value from it. Our goal is to create a circular economy in which nearly all the waste materials are given a second life, and they're reused, recycled, or recovered for their energy content. Ideally, we're looking for people to reduce what they buy, to reduce the number of waste that we produce, and then whatever waste we do use, that it is then recycled. Some of the ways we're recycling at the moment, we've just started doing is mattress recycling. You'd be really surprised the number of mattresses we get delivered to our household waste recycling centres, which are thrown away. They're now being recycled. We've got a contractor recycling them. They strip out all the metal, all the foam out of them, and they reuse those products. So, for example, the foam in the mattresses, a type of foam will be used for carpet underlay or for dog baskets. So we're trying our best to recycle materials and help the environment. Next slide, please. Thank you. So opportunities with Suez. So there are many different roles within the company. We've got operational roles, which will be based at our household waste recycling centres, energy transfer stations, material recycling facilities where we sort recycling, and energy from waste, where we make energy from the waste. There's no specific qualifications at the site operative level, and you can also access it through our apprenticeship scheme. Each year we take on apprentices for these sites in Greater Manchester. You'll be provided as well in many of those roles with mobile plant training, and if you want to move into a supervisory role, you will get training to do that, and you will also, if you want to be a regional manager, for example, you will need to study further and do some management qualifications. We've also got maintenance and technical teams, so we've got jobs in electrical and maintenance. These can be in the form of apprentices or technical professional qualifications. We've got jobs in transport, in bulk haulage, and also we have a lot of jobs in the contract support. We have a huge contract with the Greater Manchester Combined Authority that we have to manage and make sure we administrate correctly. So we've got a team of administrators, management accountants who work on those contracts with us. You can start your career in contract management through an apprenticeship, or you can do it through actually training in a professional qualification to enter into Suez. We have business support roles as well, health and safety, environmental compliance. There's a lot of health and safety regulation in our industry and environmental compliance rules that we have to comply with. So we also look for on a regular basis people with that experience, that knowledge, or again, we can look at the apprentice programme to train people up that way. Project management, we've got people who work in the for SUIs whose purely role is to manage construction projects, for example. And sustainability and social value, which is my role actually, which I'll go on to talk about in a minute. But the company has sustainability and social value projects throughout the country, but also in Greater Manchester. And then there's also roles in the commercial, which is sales, trading and bidding. We have to bid for contracts and they're can be very large bids that we bid for local authorities to run the waste for energy sites, for example. So we'll need people experienced in bidding. Next slide, please. So my role, I am the Partnership and Social Value Coordinator for SUIs in Greater Manchester. When we bid for the contract, we put together a social value plan and we are contracted to implement over 50 social value commitments that we've put into the contract. The social value plan is all about improving the life of people who work in Greater Manchester. This could be through employing people. Oh, sorry, would you move on to the next slide, please? Because this was Anna's role, but Anna's not presenting today, sorry. You go into that one, sorry. Yeah, Partnership and Social Value Coordinator. So the social value plan that we have is all about improving people's lives and also improving the environment in Greater Manchester. My role is working with our customer, who is the Greater Manchester Combined Authority, making sure that I write reports to them every month and that we have regular meetings to keep them updated with our progress. I also look at creating partnerships with local organisations, because there'll be a lot of local third sector organisations who have expertise that we can benefit from. For example, part of my role is how we improve biodiversity at our sites. We're going to be looking at how possibly developing wildflower meadows to increase pollination, putting bird box on sites, bat boxes on sites, and even our urban sites, they often have a little bit of grass area, trees nearby, so we're looking at how we can develop that. So I would work in partnership, for example, with the local wildlife trust to develop that scheme, because they will be the people who are constantly working in that area and have the expertise. So my role is a lot about building partnerships. Another part of my role will be building up our apprentice scheme, our traineeship scheme and our work experience scheme. This fits into social value because by giving people training, giving people employment, we increase people's income levels, we increase people's confidence, and this enables people in Greater Manchester to have a better lifestyle. I'm trying to be inclusive and as diverse as possible in recruiting those people for those roles. So not just going through the traditional employment recruitment routes, but looking at working through third sector organisations who have got access to a range of different people who wouldn't necessarily normally think about applying for an apprenticeship with SUIs. I'm going to be working on promoting cycling to work. I'm looking at procuring bike shelters, and we're going to do a promotional campaign around that to encourage people to cycle to work rather than come in the car. And a big part of my role this year is we're going to be reopening 3 reuse shops and a repair hub. So we get a lot of goods given as waste at the household waste recycling centres, which could actually be repaired or resold. So we're going to be asking people when they come into the household waste recycling centre, if we can take that, put it into a container and actually resell it in one of our reuse shops. We're going to base the shops actually on the household waste recycling centres, and we're going to have a repair hub separately where we will take the goods and repair. We are hoping to repair the goods using third sector organisations. So giving people in chances to actually volunteer and do traineeships in, for example, bicycle repair, so that we can get people to learn skills through the repair hub and help them into employment that way. And all the profits that we make from these shops will go back into charitable projects in Greater Manchester. Thank you. So that concludes. Hi. That concludes my talk for today. Thank you.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Karen. What a really interesting insight to the range of opportunities that you've got at Suez and the amount of stuff that you do there. I know I always see the name and, you know, kind of driving past places, but it's amazing to kind of really get under the skin and understand what it is that you're doing. I have to say, we've got loads of questions coming in from our audience, which is amazing. But just before we move on to that, I'm just going to introduce our final speaker, Dr. Ponciano. 1 second whilst I get you up there. I feel like I need Josh to help me here because my technical abilities are failing me slightly. Right, here we go. I've got you. Right, I'm just going to send you live so you can introduce yourself to the audience and then we'll start our panel discussion.
Great, thanks very much, Sophie. So I work for Ascroft Medical, a private medical clinic based in Oldham. We've been in existence since 2015 and we've grown a strong team of all sorts of professions, and I'll cover this in more detail in a minute, of around about 45 people. We're based in the centre of Oldham and we've got around about 15,000 patients. Just to give you all the sort of basic detail about this particular healthcare practice. We're fully regulated and accredited and inspected by the Care Quality Commission, meaning that our services as delivered to the public are deemed to be good across all standards of the inspection. Now, in terms of the careers that we have with us, I mean, many people might think that, you know, healthcare providers are all about doctors and nurses, and far from that. In fact, we employ people in finance, we employ people in PR, in marketing, governance, legal, and you name it. We, over the past 5 years, are very proud to have taken a number of apprentices, and we're very keen on the apprenticeship programs across all ranges of disciplines. In particular, some of the most recent apprentices that we've got are actually studying to become dental nurses. So if you're kind of thinking about healthcare, you don't know where to start, or maybe you're not thinking of going to university, the apprenticeship routes are excellent because they're remunerated and because they allow you to work alongside the professionals and mature into a profession of your dreams. This is across the piece. Our colleagues from marketing, for example, do a lot of work on digital marketing and promoting the brand, promoting our services. That's another area where we're very strong at. We use marketing to reach out to the community, not just to acquire a new business, but also to do some corporate social responsibility and promote events. And to that, I should say, we work also with a PR colleague who goes out there and does all the PR work, public relations work between Ascroft Medical and the community. Finance and IT colleagues work hand in hand with everybody to make sure that the business is in good hands and doing well. And over these last 5 years, we have acquired 2 premises and expanded our services. In fact, if you're interested in healthcare in terms of lab work, you know, kind of dealing with blood tests and so on, we are soon going to open a lab provision which will work hand in hand with our doctors, meaning that a patient coming in can have their consultation, can have their blood tests, can have their results right there and then. And it calls for an integrated point of healthcare service. In one single appointment, you basically see all your healthcare needs. Perhaps one of the things I've not mentioned, we cover areas from dentistry to gynecology, general medicine, and quite a lot of other specialisms, including physiotherapy and so on. So these are the areas where we work not just with the professionals who have qualified, but also we have an interest in recruiting those who are interested in coming into these professions, as I said, possibly through the apprenticeship schemes. And of course, we've got support staff, receptionists, head receptionists, HR staff, and governance. So these are colleagues who ensure that the logistics of seeing a 15,000 strong patient base is all well organized, ensuring that they don't wait too long, ensuring that the quality of the care is right there and then, very satisfactory, and we're very proud of the work that we've done in the last 5 years. So if you're interested in any of these careers, please get in touch. As I said, we're all open to hear about new colleagues who want to join us. We don't operate particular recruitment cycles. We are open for recruiting staff all year round, and that goes from the juniors coming into the professions and those wanting to learn to those who are already qualified. So that's, I suppose, a quick summary of Ascroft Medical for all of you. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Ponciano. So the first question that we've got is actually to Josh from North Coders. So Josh, I'm going to just send you onto live again. And the question is, how easy is it for how easy is it to switch to digital if you have no prior experience?
It's a really good question, and it's something that obviously we get asked a lot by people looking to come into the course, but also by people or employers looking to hire people at the other side as well. So I alluded to this briefly when I was talking, but one of the fantastic things about digital is you can showcase work that you've completed. I think the first and probably most challenging step is obviously going through that journey of learning the skills. There's a lot of fantastic resources out there to get started, including online tools such as Free Code Camp, Code Academy, Khan Academy, and we do signpost a lot of this content on our website. But I think the challenge for some people is obviously taking that next step and saying, okay, so I've got the fundamentals, I've got the building blocks, and I know the basics of a language or indeed any other digital skills. It's now about understanding how all these things fit together in order to make something and being able to, I suppose, demonstrate commercial awareness. So there's a lot of organisations, to name a couple, that operate in and around Manchester, Prince's Trust, and a company called Innovate Her that do some really good stuff. And then we've done stuff before where we've gone to schools and talked about digital skills, but pulling something together and demonstrating your ability to make something. So we've previously done simple coding projects with people where they've made a website, or they've made a snake game, or they've made like a simple recipe lookup tool, just to give you a few examples. And in terms of getting started, one of the things I would always recommend to people is build up gradually. So don't go away and try and remake Twitter or something like that, but really just keep scope of what you're trying to make focused, and reach out to people in the industry as well. As I mentioned, a lot of the companies we work with, I know people in these organizations that do mentoring online. I mentioned Twitter is a great place to find people who are working as developers, and a lot, big, especially corporate and public sector organizations have outreach programs where they will run days and sessions and events where you can come in and practice those skills, meet people and pick their brains about what their journey's been into the industry, what they enjoy about their job, and get advice as well. As I mentioned, there's a QA session, which is another training provider, on Friday, and if it is something you're interested in learning more about, it'll be well worth going to that.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Josh. So the next couple of questions we've got are for Amy. A couple of them, well, one of them's fairly tricky, which is it difficult to dismiss somebody? And then the other question is, are there ways to progress in HR? Not to put you on the spot with that first one or anything there, Amy. Amy, you're just on mute, so I'm sure the answer was brilliant, so you might have to rethink about it.
Sorry, I'm not doing very well today, am I? I'll answer the question regarding HR progression, and then I'm going to hand over to Rachel, who will answer the question regarding how easy is it to dismiss somebody. So in terms of HR progression, yeah, there's loads of opportunities. If I think about my own career journey, I started off as a HR generalist working in store for, it was Sainsbury's at the time, doing loads of different bits and bobs, bit of recruitment, bit of payroll. Then moved on to become a line manager before I moved into the policy advisor role that I'm currently working in. And there's always opportunities, whether that's within different teams. Some of the skills that you develop are really transferable, so do open up loads of different doors as well. And I'm sure Rachel will talk a little bit in a minute about her own career journey, but absolutely loads of opportunities. And I'm sure, as you've seen through everyone's presentations today, there's always elements of HR, always roles available in HR across every different organisation and sector. So highly recommended. I'm going to hand over to Rachel for you now.
Yeah. Hi everyone. Okay, how easy is it to dismiss somebody? It depends really. It depends on a lot of factors. It depends on how long they've been with us, what kind of contract they're on, what they've done. Clearly, if we want to dismiss somebody, they might not have behaved themselves. There's lots of reasons why we could dismiss. It's not necessarily due to conduct. It could be performance. It could be due to ill health. But we're obviously bound by a lot of legislation, employment law, which we need to make sure that we're following. So that's probably not an easy answer. It's not a straightforward answer, but yes, we can certainly dismiss somebody. And there are, you know, we follow the ACAS code, which is like the government sort of guidelines around employment law. If we don't follow them, you know, our employees, any employees have the right to put a claim into ACAS first and then an employment tribunal. They have to have 2 years service if they want to put in a straightforward dismissal, unfair dismissal claim. But then there's lots of factors to think in that sort of filter into that. And I could talk for ages around this, but yes, in a short answer to your question, as long as we're following the relevant employment legislation, yes, we can certainly dismiss people. Okay.
Thanks, Rachel. It's a bit of a cheeky question coming in there, I think, but it's Friday, so and the next question is for Karen, and the question is about the apprenticeships that you mentioned at Suez. So the questioner would like to know, how do you find out about those apprenticeships and how can you apply for them?
Hello, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. You can contact myself directly to find out about the apprenticeships. We will advertise as well on recruitment websites when we have apprenticeships available, but we also put apprenticeship opportunities on our website, which is www.suez.co.uk. We've also got a jobs portal for careers at Suez as well, where we would advertise apprenticeships. We're not currently recruiting at the moment for apprenticeships, but we will be next year. So we will have opportunities coming up. If anybody's interested, is to get in touch with me, and then I can keep that on my keep an eye on that. So if there's something coming up that that person's particularly interested in, I can let them know when an apprentice opportunity comes up. I can give you my email at the end.
Fabulous, thank you. I've popped the site that you mentioned, the link to the Suez site, into the chat. So if anybody, the people who asked that question wanted to take a look, you can have a deeper look at some of the opportunities there. So the next question is to Dr. Ponciano, and the question is, what subjects other than science would be beneficial to take for careers in medicine?
Obviously, biology, physics and mathematics will play great importance for any career in healthcare in general. Chemistry, I would say probably even more. My apologies, I should say biology, chemistry and maths. Some of us might not think, but maths is really very important across all areas of healthcare, in particular because doctors do analyze a lot of blood results and so on. Even though there's a lot of machinery that does things for us these days, but the human eye and analytical skills are really very important. So, and that tends to come from good mathematical backgrounds. Some of us might be a little scared about that, but I think it's all about building that confidence and not really listening too much to what others say when others say such and such subjects are difficult. Well, just overcome those difficulties. Just think, just hard work, perseverance, and that's really very important. But yeah, keep those subjects in general. They are the most important for healthcare careers. In particular, if you are wishing to become a GP. If you're just looking at, for example, being a nurse, then your GCSEs through an apprenticeship scheme tend to be fine, and that's English and maths are sufficient. We don't particularly look at any other specific subjects because that training goes from a ground zero, let's put it this way, from the very beginning, and you develop as you work with the professionals. You learn an awful lot through the job, and then you're supported by your college hand in hand with getting the qualification at the end of typically 18 months for a dental nurse, for example.
Brilliant, thank you so much. So we've come to the end of some of our questions. We've got one final question that I'd like to put to all the panelists, but I'm sort of doubting my technical abilities to do this in quite the manner that I would like. So what I'm going to ask, if you unmute yourself when I come to you, you won't be on the screen, but we will all be able to hear your voice. So the question is, what one piece of advice would you give somebody who is entering the workforce in this kind of current COVID situation that we have? So Dr. Ponciano, as you're unmuted, let's go to you first.
Can you hear me? Am I on mute? Am I okay? Yeah. I don't think you should be put off by this pandemic. One of the most important things about learning is to have the independence to do so. Learning is all around us, and it can take place in any situation, whether it's a cafe or whether it's at work, school, university, at home. I think, and given the fact that information very often is at our fingertips, whether it's mobile phones for e-learning or whether you've got a PC, I think it's all about pursuing your intention and not be distracted by what's going around. The pandemic, yes, it's here, but hopefully next year it will have gone. We're all praying for that. So I think it's more important that you just kind of continue to think that your career, you're in charge, and take any opportunity to learn whatever the information is, take it in, learn as much as you can, develop, ask the right questions, go and seek for answers. I think these are very important skills, and that's being independent. And that means you have the motivation to pursue your dreams, and not forget that. Thank you.
I love that. Thank you. Not be put off. It's an opportunity still. So I'm going to come to Karen as well for the same question.
Hi. Yeah, do something that you're passionate about and that you love, because obviously you're going to be doing the job every day, so you need to be doing something that you're interested in. Sometimes we don't know exactly what we want to do, so you need to try different things out or speak to different people who are in companies and find out what roles there are. Because I think since coming to SUEZ, I didn't know all these roles existed, and I suppose there's many industries like that people don't know. There's definitely different interesting roles in every company. But yeah, try and do something you love and be passionate about, and don't give up. You might need to study for it, you might need to work hard, but if it's a competitive market, you can still get there. You just need to put the effort in. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Sue.
Really, I just want to echo what Karen said, because I think what a lot of us have realised while we're sat at home working from home is that you probably spend more time at work than you do with your family. And if you're not passionate about it, especially now that we can't see our families and we can't go out and about, I think a lot of people are rethinking what they want to do as a career. So I wonder what the uptake will be on the coders courses, and maybe if a couple of people are having a rethink about what they want to do. The reason civil service is so great is because you can be a generalist, and the main passion is, are you passionate about people? And that's why I'm at the civil service, because I want to try and make a difference. So yeah, just find out what you're passionate about, and if you don't know, yeah, talk to people, figure it out, and change. I mean, I don't think anyone on this call will be in the profession that they started out in. I started out working in a school, so yeah, it's not one path. Your career's a journey, so you probably will have many different careers in your lifetime, but try and find what you're passionate about, because that will, you know, get you up in the morning and make you feel energized to go to work.
Well, I don't know about you, but that certainly energised me, Sue, so thank you so much. Amy, as well, over to you.
I would say, you know, just be you and follow the path that is right for you. Don't be swayed by what you think is the right thing to do. You know, if you've got a dream and an ambition, you know, with hard work, as everyone said, and determination, it can pay off one way or another. So, you know, absolutely do something that you're passionate about, but stay true to who you are and do what you want to do for you.
Fabulous. And Josh, finally, thank you.
There we go. There is to come out to unmute. Yeah, really good points raised by everyone there. I think there's a similar sort of theme that went through all of them. I think what Susanna said was very interesting, and it's completely true that most people will change careers multiple times. I read some really interesting statistic that I think even 60 years ago, the average number of careers people would have in a lifetime was more than 5. So yeah, you don't need to know what you want to do, and it's okay to change. So I think that's really important. But in terms of what you can do to make yourself more employable, and to start maybe getting an idea of what it is you might enjoy doing, the one piece of advice I'd really sort of like to get across is the importance of personal development. So that doesn't have to be just learning to code or any sort of specific skill set to an industry, but I mean things like communication skills, having a learning mindset. So, you know, applying yourself and learning. They could be a hobby, they could be a sport, anything like that, but applying to yourself to things and constantly trying to get better at them, having a positive attitude, flexibility, and communication. And I think a lot of organisations out there as well will have learning and development managers, as well as early careers coaches and people that specialise in recruitment for people in entry-level roles, who will be more than happy to, I'm sure, you know, have a conversation with you and talk about how to get into that specific industry. So yeah, you know, just apply yourself to things that you enjoy, get better at them, and reach out to people in the industry.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of you for taking part in the session today. I'm afraid that brings us to the end. We've overrun ever so slightly, but otherwise I think we've done a pretty good job of sticking to time, getting the questions answered and giving an insight into all of your amazing roles and the growth sectors across Greater Manchester. We've got a number of questions that unfortunately we haven't had time to answer, but what I would like is perhaps to ask our panelists if we're able to answer those, and we can send it out to the attendees afterwards. Really interesting insights. So thank you all so much for taking part today. I know it's taken time out of your busy days, but it's a wonderful opportunity for all of those 20,000+ young people who've dialed in and connected to all of our different sessions across this first virtual workplace opportunity week that we've run through the Combined Authority. So I'd just like to say a huge thank you to everybody. Huge thank you to the team at Bridge GM and at GMLPN, Greater Manchester Learning Provider Network, for supporting us to put this session together, and of course the presenters today, but all the presenters from across the week that have taken part. It's been truly an immense undertaking, but one that we've enjoyed immeasurably. So thank you all very much, and I hope you all have a wonderful weekend.